Dus dat is allemaal zeer nauw berekend en zeer fijne mechaniek, om zeggen ze. En dat moet dan, als dat verwrongen is, moet dat inderdaad terug rechtgezet worden. En normaal gebeurt dat eigenlijk in de turbinefabrieken zelf. En in dit geval is dat wellicht Alstom in Frankrijk die dat dan terug zou moeten goedmaken.
Maar vooral het uitvallen van doel 3 blijft een structureel probleem. Met de schade in doel 4 erbovenop kunnen er in de winter tekorten komen voor de energietoevoer. Er is een uitweg, zegt Verbrugge.
Er bestaan natuurlijk ook heel wat stilliggende gascentrales die vrij snel terug kunnen opgestart worden. Een gascentrale hoeft geen dagen tijd om op te starten.
Dr. Caldicott, Fukushima. Is it possible to forecast the health consequences to the Japanese people, and on what scale are they likely to materialize?
Well, it's a guess, really, but I have been following it extremely closely every day since the thing started. And I must say that 2 days after it began, I got this horrifying vision and feeling that this was like descending into hell, and that there's nothing anyone could do about it or will be able to do about it, and the results are irreversible. I thought hundreds of thousands would die as a result of Fukushima with cancer or leukemia, but it will also affect future generations down the timescale, both from the fact that the food and the ground in large areas of Japan is heavily contaminated with isotopes that last for hundreds of years. So they reconcentrate back in the food chain continuously, so you never get rid of the things. The other thing is that once you've got some cesium-137 in your brain or your muscle or your ovary or your testicle or any of the other several hundred elements, they stay in a little place in your body irradiating a few cells with a high dose. So you don't get a low dose. Those cells get a high dose. So from two perspectives, the accident kind of never ends. It doesn't end in your body. Maybe one day you might excrete these elements, but you might not. And that the food chain remains contaminated for hundreds or thousands of years. And we'll start seeing lung cancer and leukemia, I think 2 to 5 years from now. And then solid cancers will start appearing 15 to 60, 70 years later. So the ace up the sleeve of the nuclear industry is the incubation time for cancer. It takes a long time for cancers to develop once you have inhaled or been exposed to these radioactive elements. And no cancer identifies its origin. And so there is already a level of cancer in society, but it's going to increase dramatically.
What do people need to know about nuclear power in the United States that they are not being told?
Everything. It just makes me feel nauseated to think that the industry is spending hundreds of millions of dollars saying that nuclear power is clean, green, sustainable and cheap. And all of those are lies. And I get very sick of scientists or people who lie about science. If I lied about medicine, I would be deregistered, I would be damaging my patients. It is totally inappropriate and immoral to lie about science. Nuclear power, produces large quantities of global warming gas because it relies on a massive industrial infrastructure of mining, enriching, 2 huge coal-fired plants to enrich your uranium, building huge reactors, knocking them down in 30, 40 years, storing radioactive wastes for 500,000 years. I mean, none of that is taken into account. So nuclear power adds substantially to global warming. That's lie number 1. 2, it's not cheap because it's all paid for by tax dollars, except when the reactor's built. And even then the utilities don't pay any insurance. If there's an accident, you taxpayers pick it up. The utilities make money by selling electricity, that's all. They don't have to build the reactors, it's all subsidised and paid for. I mean, no other industry has that sort of subsidisation. And do you know why? Because it's the prodigal son of the weapons industry. And when nuclear power was begun by Eisenhower in the 50s, atoms for peace, the weapons industry said we require nuclear power as a sort of Trojan horse, camouflage to hide behind. And then everyone said it was safe. The Japanese didn't want nuclear power after Nagasaki and Hiroshima, but they were talked into it. So it's a really wicked, wicked industry. And any country that has a reactor, be it Syria, Saudi Arabia, you name it, they have a bomb factory. Because each reactor makes 500 pounds of plutonium a year. Plutonium lasts for 500,000 years, and all you need is 5 pounds to make yourself a nuclear weapon. So by selling nuclear power abroad, which America is heavily into, it is causing proliferation of nuclear weapons, which it says it's not, but it is. And that could trigger a global holocaust between Russia and America, who still target each other with thousands of nuclear weapons.
Does the average doctor understand the full risks involved with radiation in nuclear power plants?
No, we're not taught about the medical implications of nuclear power in medical schools. We did get some curricula going, Physicians for Social Responsibility, in the 80s in medical schools about nuclear war, but also nuclear power. It's a very, very interesting subject, but one about which most doctors are fairly ignorant. I would suggest, though, that all doctors obtain a copy from the New York Academy of Sciences on Chernobyl. That was published last year, and they translated 5,000 articles from Slavic, from Russian, into English that were published in the Russian medical and scientific literature. Over 1 million people now have already died as a result of Chernobyl. It's only 25 years old. Over 1 million, and that has been covered up by the blasted UN, by the International Atomic Energy Agency. How dare they? And the World Health Organization. This is the biggest cover-up in the history of medicine. I have never read anything like this in my life. And I've been a doctor since I was 23.
The Nuclear Regulatory Commission has asked the National Academy of Sciences to do some research on incidence of cancer in the vicinity of nuclear plants all over the United States. Is that going to be a helpful study, do you think?
Yes and no. The National Academy of Sciences has conducted for 7 consecutive occasions a thing called the biological effects of ionising radiation, and they put out a report recently, number 7, and it was a good report, and it said no radiation is safe, radiation is cumulative, and yes, I trust them. There's a huge push by the industry to prevent really decent research being done, but in a way it's unnecessary, because the German government, and the Germans are very precise with their data, examined I think 16 old reactors and looked at children under the age of 5 who lived within 5K of the reactors. And they had more than double the incidence of leukemia. Children are 10 to 20 times more radiosensitive than adults. More than double the incidence of leukemia and a high incidence of solid cancers. And the closer they lived to the reactor, the higher the incidence of malignancy. Now that study is absolutely classical. You can't find any holes in it at all. And in a way, it doesn't need to be repeated.
It's just to think that that innocuous little complex over there, that building, has caused the destruction of 9 million lives, half of which are children under the age of 5. You know, there's nothing that shows the sort of violence of what came out of there, because, I mean, radiation is invisible. So I suppose my predominant emotion is of, like, really deep sadness. Especially when you know the kids and, you know, you see the look in their eyes, you know, the children that know themselves that there's no hope in their future. And to know that it came from this, you know, something that was not of their making.
What's the reading now?
11,000. 12 is your average background radiation that you get in New York or in Dublin and Ireland. This is 1,000 times greater than the normal background level of radiation. We're in extreme danger now. Anything, if we stay any longer, we'll be really foolish. So I'm suggesting we all pull out. Okay, guys?
In deze streek is het aantal gevallen van schildklierkanker spectaculair gestegen. Er worden ook 3 keer meer baby's met afwijkingen geboren. Vaak worden die kinderen achtergelaten.
This is the #1 home for abandoned babies in Minsk, and this home did not exist before Chernobyl. Look at you, chicken. Gadina. Look at this little sweetheart. This is a lovely little girl called Dasha. This is Julia, who's 4 years old, and her brain is not within her skull. It's actually a separate entity onto the back of her head. Can I just hold her? I'd like to hold her. Just to hold her, yeah. Which is the best way? I just want to hold this little girlie. Just, it's a good girl. I suppose I'm relieved to see that she's still alive, even though I'm not sure if that's the best thing for her either. How's Eugene? He looks so well, much better than he did when he was younger.
Can she do anything for him?
Ему уже не сделать. Ему уже нельзя. Он консультирован нейрохирургами, все, операцию.
No,
Увы, нельзя.
it's too late. You can't operate.
It's his kidneys inside and that, yeah. But it's affected his legs as well. You can see his legs, there's no mobility there. And he's the most gorgeous baby. We know him for a long time.
Can they do anything? Or because
No, they can't. They can't, not now
Do you
anyway.
know what's going to happen to him?
Nobody knows.
School in een ander besmet dorp. Hier testen 2 wetenschappers kinderen op radioactiviteit. Een toestel meet de hoeveelheid radioactief cesium in het lichaam van de kinderen via een stoel. Cesium is een kankerverwekkend metaal.
Запросто.
Какие органы он в первую очередь, как вы думаете, может затронуть?
Желудочно-кишечный тракт, сердце, печень, почки, легкие.
То есть вы верите в то, что
And is he worried about anything?
беспокоены тем, что у вас очень находится?
Там патология щитовидной железы, там рак, лейкоз и прочие очень опасные болезни, они встречаются чаще, чем в чистых регионах. И на основании этой статистики делается вывод, что именно в этих регионах за счет радиации дети чаще
Gomel,
болеют.
een stad met 700.000 inwoners op 80 kilometer van Tsjernobyl. De radioactiviteit ligt hier 40 keer hoger dan de gevarengrens. We bezoeken een tehuis voor achtergelaten kinderen.
Abandoned Babies Home has more children with flu on the brain and so. And after Chernobyl accident, the amount of these cases much grown.
It's much higher.
Yeah, high now.
What percentage of babies are born healthy, like this baby?
Ну, где-то 15-20 здоровых.
And the problems that the kids have that aren't born healthy, do you think it's related to radiation?
Конечно, повлиял. То заметно увеличение патологии после Чернобыля. И заболеваемость же детей после рождения, вот оно ощущается, видно, да, вот ослаблен иммунитет у детей.
In Wit-Rusland sterven 3 keer meer baby's dan in de rest van Europa. Pripyat, een stad aan de voet van de verwoeste kerncentrale van Tsjernobyl. 25 jaar geleden verlieten alle 50.000 inwoners in 1 dag hun huizen en flats. Als we in 2005 gaan kijken, hangt er nog altijd een grote dosis radioactiviteit in de lucht.
On this device now we're measuring 60 microrentgens per hour. Now let's come for one place where I know the accumulation of hot particles there.
Yuri is natuurwachter en bewaker in Pripyat. Op sommige plaatsen is de radioactieve straling 10 keer hoger dan normaal.
140, 170.
200. Well, not dangerous to stay because we are protected by the layer of the snow from that. In summertime here, approximately 1,000 microrentgens per hour.
Dit zijn beelden uit de ingestorte reactor. De radioactiviteit is zo hoog dat de stralen inbranden op de cameralens. Wie hier onbeschermd een paar minuten rondloopt, tekent zijn doodvonnis. In 2005 waren arbeiders dag in dag uit bezig met het verstevigen van de sarcofaag boven de ingestorte reactor. Als ook die het begaf, zou dat een tweede Tsjernobyl betekenen. 6 jaar later is die sarcofaag gestabiliseerd en zijn ze een nieuwe aan het bouwen. Alle arbeiders weten dat ze een verhoogd risico op kanker hebben. 150.000 vierkante kilometer in Wit-Rusland en Oekraïne is al radioactief besmet. Toch wordt iedereen die de zone verlaat nog altijd gecontroleerd op straling.